to In Her Words, Working Conversations by Women. I'm your host, Tando Maziburo. On this episode, we're joined by Paula Nkandu Haamaundu, an ITC and Cybersecurity Advisor with deep expertise of cybersecurity strategy and policy development. Paula brings valuable insight from her work across Africa, including her contribution to national security framework and her advocacy from inclusive tech spaces. We dive into her journey, the evolving cybersecurity landscape on the continent, and why building trust and collaboration is essential in protecting our digital future. Whether you're new to cybersecurity or working in the field, this conversation offers something meaningful for everyone. Let's jump in. Hi, Paula. Thank you for joining us today. And how are you?
Thank you, Tanda, for that introduction. I know my name is quite a mouthful, so I'm going to say it again. It's Paula Nkandu Haamaundu. And I also have another name, so I'm not going to say it now because it will be too much. But thank you for having me on your podcast. I see the work that you're doing, and it's very valuable to give voices to women. So I'm very honored to be here.
And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for correcting me for your name. To start, can you please share a bit about your journey and how you got into this field of cybersecurity and ICT?
That's a very interesting question because whilst I knew that I wanted to be in tech, I never really embarked on a cybersecurity career. So I have a bachelor's degree in computer science, and right after university, I was only aware of like 3 tech careers. So I thought, I could do networking, or I could be a software developer, or I could do IT support. At that particular time, I wasn't aware about cybersecurity and the various different fields in cybersecurity. So I figured, I want to be a software developer. And so right after university, my friend had a startup, and I joined the startup as a software developer. And then eventually I did a couple of internships at the National Assembly of Zambia for about 8 months or so. Which really gave me a different perspective in terms of the service aspect of technology. So IT support is generally about serving your customers, and you can have internal or external customers. So those few months, although quite hectic, if you've been in IT support, you know how hectic it can be. But it was very valuable for my long-term career because it gave me a service-oriented mindset. And then after that, I got my first kind of like big girl job in a bank as an IT security specialist. And that's how my cybersecurity journey started. Initially, I had applied for like a graduate training program, and then they decided to put me in the information security function. And cybersecurity is like I don't really want to use the word subset, but you have information security and then you have cybersecurity, because information security is work that relates to information that's either in the cyberspace or physical space. So it covers everything. It's more broad. So I joined that section, and it was very interesting. I had an amazing boss. She was really impactful in terms of my career growth. Very kind woman, very caring, and very genuine, like just a genuinely good human being. And I really give her credit for how I grew in my role. So I joined the bank, and I started my career doing vulnerability management, drafting policies and things like that. It was very exciting work because I hadn't really thought about a career in cybersecurity or information security. So when I started, I was like, this is actually quite cool, you know. But I remember I had attended a conference, I think that was around 2018, and I was really questioning whether I should still stay in a technology career. I was thinking, you know what, maybe I should move to like a business administration role or something like that. And I remember attending a conference. I actually applied for it online, and they said they would pay for like logistics and everything like that. I said, okay, what? Let me try and apply and see whether I get it. So I applied and I got to go to Ghana. The conference was the Africa Summit on Women and Girls in Technology. And I remember just being in that place where you have so many women with diverse technology roles, and just, really being inspired by the work that they were doing. And I think in terms of my love for policy, especially at the national level, I remember a woman speaking on a panel. Someone said, "Oh no, policy is boring. I know policy is boring for a lot of us." And then this other woman, the next one to speak, got the mic, and she said, "While I understand where you're coming from, I don't think policy is boring, and that's not the message that we should be sending." And she went on to speak about policy, and she was so passionate about it. I can't remember everything that she said, but in that moment, I started to think, you know what? I think eventually I do want to end up in a more policy-oriented role so that we can shape the future of whether it's the nation or the continent and things like that. So even as I started my role in IT security with the bank, I think at the back of my mind, I always knew that I want to get into a more technology policy role. It took a few years for me to get there, but I think one of the foundational ways that I actually got into more policy-oriented work is when I was working for Copperbelt University. I was given the opportunity to review the Zambia Cybersecurity Act at that time, when the law hadn't been passed into an act yet, but they were looking for validation and reviews from different sectors. So I was selected as part of the team that would review and present to the parliamentary committee. And that's when I'm like, okay, I think now this is what I want to do. And I think from then on, it's just been like, this is what I want to do. I want to work in cybersecurity. I want to work in technology, but I also want to shape the policies and the frameworks that we have.
That's an amazing career. And to bring your IT background and your software development background into changing policies within, your country of Zambia, but also now in Africa. You currently serve as an ICT and Cybersecurity Advisor at GIZ and the African Union. What does that role involve, and what type of challenges do you face or address in that role?
So my role is mostly governance, risk, and compliance. Like you mentioned, I work for GIZ African Union, but I am seconded to the African Union Commission. So most of my work is with the AUC, the African Union Commission, internally. And my work is really governance, risk, and compliance. So it involves reviewing the Commission's ICT policies, creating a risk management framework for the IT department. It's a lot of compliance work, ensuring that the Commission is on a path of globally recognized international standards, ensuring we are doing enough security awareness in the Commission. So it's a lot of stakeholder engagement, a lot of stakeholder management type of work, trying to ensure that sometimes people think cybersecurity, which is of course the truth, it can be a very technical and very technical role. Sometimes it's like, cybersecurity, it's very tough and things like that. So sometimes you have to try and put it in a layman's language so that people can actually understand. If you tell people you need to ensure that you ensure that you have multi-factor authentication on your phone, someone will say, why should I? Because it's like another added layer to me getting to access my information. But you need to now speak to them and make them understand that if you don't have multi-factor authentication, somebody can easily take hold of your phone and get your information. And this is how multi-factor authentication will help you against that. So it's a lot of stakeholder management, like I said, and a lot of trying to make people understand the essence of cybersecurity.
You do touch on the multiple steps of, multiple codes. What type of have you seen in Africa are the biggest pressing issues when it comes to cybersecurity, do you think?
There's actually quite a number of issues, and they are multifaceted. Usually when we talk about technology and even cybersecurity, we always like to bring it from the perspective of three pillars. That is the people, the processes, and the technology. I would start with the people, which I think is one of the most important aspects of driving any type of culture. So we don't see a lot of cybersecurity awareness to intentionally address specific groups. For instance, if I'm not quite sure if you have something similar in your country, but usually if you're delivering a training, you probably deliver, if you're speaking to a particular tribe, you most likely tailor that training to their language so that they can easily understand. Because not everybody speaks maybe English or French or these official languages. Some people only speak the tribe's language. So ensuring that even as we deliver cybersecurity awareness, we're able to cater to different groups based off of how they want to receive information or they want to value information. From the perspective of, or maybe another aspect of people, I think we have a limited, or rather, I don't think we have the wide range of cybersecurity skills on the continent from the technical perspective as well as the policy perspective. So that's an area where we are lacking. And I know there's quite a number of organizations trying to ensure that there's cyber capacity building, whether it's from the technical perspective or the policy perspective, to ensure that we bridge that gap. In terms of processes, this is always interesting. So you find that we have a lot of policies or a lot of frameworks. We have something called the Malabo Convention, but I think only about 16 or less than 20 countries have ratified it. The Malabo Convention is a treaty that is supposed to address cybersecurity and data protection in Africa, but only a few countries have ratified it. So even implementation of that convention is not as widespread as it should be. So things like implementing, you may have a policy or a process, but if it's not implemented, then it doesn't really address any of the challenges that you have. And then from the technology side, I think one of the biggest issues I've seen is that technology to address cybersecurity is quite expensive. It's very, very expensive. And sometimes it's difficult to actually advocate for why you need to get that particular technology or that particular tool or system. So the resources that are required to get cybersecurity tools or systems may not be available because these things are very expensive.
That's a lot to do.
Yeah, it is.
Especially for us as a continent, not everyone has access to, computers or devices that can use. So how does that also come into play within your work that, we're a very big continent, but in this continent, when it comes to technology, it's a bit slow moving. How does that come into the play into your work and as well?
I like to think of that in different ways, but one of them is that for people that don't have the technology or gadgets at this particular moment, this is the right time to start ensuring that they are aware of cybersecurity risks, so that at the point that they have access to those tools or gadgets, they already have an understanding of the challenges or the risks of having those gadgets. For instance, if you it's easier to train someone and tell them, if you have a phone, this is what you need to implement. You need to make sure that your phone has the right updates. When you get an update, it's already, you actually click on it so that you can actually have the update applied. It's easier to do that before they have the phone than when they do have the phone. I think the other thing that I would want to address is social media. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation on social media. And I think some of the things that we see on social media are informed by the culture and the way society is framed. But if you address things in the physical, even at the point that people get onto social media, they already have a certain perspective of the culture and of the society. So they'll be able to transfer what's in the physical to what's in the cyberspace. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I think we kind of don't. We just want to rush into giving people tools before they even understand the risks and responsibilities that they have to have.
Exactly.
And I think addressing these responsibilities first will make it so much better for all of us in the African continent and learning about such things. You do
exactly.
Sorry. You were saying?
There's a concept of security by design in cybersecurity, which basically means that at the points that you're developing maybe an application or you're trying to create a process, you put security considerations at the start. And I think this really is what I was trying to get at. People need to understand their responsibilities. They need to understand the risks so that from the start of the process, the security factors are already put into consideration. But then again, of course, I'm always an advocate of ensuring that we bridge the digital divide and we give people the possibility of being on the internet, because I think the internet is one of the biggest drivers of economies. So I'm always an advocate for that. The more we do it, the better. But we should always just ensure that it moves hand in hand with security considerations.
That's amazing. You do touch on your boss who played a pivotal role within your career and mentored you. You yourself have been actively involved in initiatives like International Girls Day, in ICT Day. Why is it important to encourage more women and young people to enter the space of cybersecurity, in your opinion?
That's an interesting question, because I remember when I just started out in the field, I almost dropped out of cybersecurity or this career. I almost changed my career because I think I didn't have the right community at the start. And so for me, community is a big, big thing. I always want to ensure that I can do my part in creating a safe community for people getting into cybersecurity. Like I mentioned, my boss was a very big help in terms of helping me find my footing. I've also had many, many mentors that have poured into me, both men and women that have poured into me and helped me to find my feet and to keep going when things get tough, because trust me, things that do get tough. So that's why I want to give back as well, because somebody poured into me. So I want to be able to pour back into other people. Just yesterday, I was speaking to a mentee. She had reached out to me, I think last week. She introduced herself. I'm looking for a mentor. So I said, cool, I would love to talk to you. So yesterday we had our first call, and it really gives me great joy to be able to impact someone's life in a positive way.
And that is just testament of how generous of your time you are. I saw you in a African Union room on a panel discussion, and I was like, I need her here. And you made that time, and that's not what everyone does, but that's very much appreciated from all of us, even your new mentee. I can assure you.
Thank you. It's like I mentioned, there's been so much that people have done for me. I remember when I had my first child, and I had joined this mentorship program. My son was 2 weeks at that point. And then I was thinking, I don't want to go back for work. I want to stay home. I want to be a stay-at-home mom because I can't leave my son. And it was really a struggle for me to think I have to leave my son at home. Like, I really, really struggled. But then I was paired with this woman who had, she told me she had undergone something similar. She told me about having to go to an interview and leave her son in the car with her mom. And just seeing those experiences or hearing those experiences from her, I'm like, okay, if she could do it, then probably I can do it as well. So I always try to offer my experiences and expertise to people in the hopes that maybe they can find it relatable and keep pushing.
And we definitely are. How do you see the African cybersecurity landscape evolving in the next 5 or 10 years? I know it's a big question to ask.
It is a big question, and I'll really answer it from my perspective, as I am answering a lot of these questions. I think there's a lot of potential because Africa has, I think, the youngest population. Not the youngest population, but it's the continent with the biggest population of people between, I think, ages 15 and 35, if I'm not mistaken. And so what that means is that it's a good thing. It's a good thing because you have so many people that you can train. You have so many people that are of the working age that can actually do things. So I would like to see a lot of investments or trainings for young people in cybersecurity. Because again, young people are very tech savvy. Look at me saying young people as if I'm not a young person.
You're a young person as well.
Exactly. But yeah, young people, very tech savvy, easily adapt to technology. So it's the curiosity that we need in cybersecurity. I always say, for me, if I'm getting a cybersecurity analyst, for instance, I remember when I was hiring for an analyst, one of the things that I was really looking for is that motivation and that curiosity to want to know, to want to learn, to want to solve problems. And you find that a lot in young people because they thrive off of contributing to something, having impact. So if we're able to tap that young population and train them in the next 5 years, we have so much potential. We will probably be one of the most secure continents if we have the right investments in young people.
And you've answered a lot of my questions. A lot.
That was a big question.
It was a big question, and it is an unfair question to ask as well. But I mean, I think you work with young people. You are a young person within this field, and we can see by your wish of that landscape. And you speak about investment and how investment is so important within our continent to grow this field, and that is the main thing. If we could just get the right investment within our continent to help us grow. In closing, if there's one thing you'd wish people would understand about cybersecurity, especially in Africa, what would that be?
Based off of my work experience, I think it's the fact that a lot of issues to do with cybersecurity are very much governance related. Like I mentioned, I think at the start of the call, mostly cybersecurity is seen as a very technical topic or very technical career, which in part is true. But I believe that to have a secure system, or a secure environment, you need governance. So what kind of processes are you putting in place? What kind of systems are you putting in place? And most of these things are informed by governance. You need the right committees or the right level of leadership to be able to drive some of these agendas. And for as long as we don't put cybersecurity considerations from the governance perspective, I think we'll always struggle. And that's why I think you have now a lot of countries passing into law, especially in Africa, cybersecurity acts, cybersecurity crimes, because it's not just from the technical perspective. It's also about people, about culture, about the different processes, having the right policies. And so I think I'm always trying to preach governance, and that's really my work. And maybe just in closing, I don't know whether I would call it a conference last week called Geneva Cyber Week, and I was watching online, and I think it was the former CIO of the NHS in the UK was talking about the impact of the WannaCry ransomware that they had experienced. I think that should have been around 2015 or so, 2014 or 2015. and what they learned from that incident. And one of the first things he said is that governance. You really need to have a governance system in place, because that's the only way you'll be able to manage cybersecurity in a systematic and structured way.
And lastly, what is your one advice you would like to give our audience today?
That's always interesting because I have so many things to say. I would say keep going, keep learning, keep trying. I have had a lot of hurdles in my life, a lot of challenges. But whenever I encounter a challenge, I try to think, okay, what is my next step? How do I need to review this? What do I need to change? What do I need to do? Why did I fail? And my mind is always like in overdrive, like you need to move to the next step. What do you need to do? So always having that perspective, keep trying. Life is hard. Life is hard and it's complicated, and but always having the mindset of I can try again tomorrow. If you need to learn a particular topic, the world now is very open. You can reach out to people, you can take some courses, do whatever it is that you need to do. Of course, if it's the legal way, do what you need to do to really improve yourself and contribute to not just yourself, but your community and the wider space.
Thank you so much, Paula, for joining us. It was a really pleasure speaking to you and you making time for us.
Thank you so much, Nando. I had a good time, and thank you for extending the invite.
Thank you.